making more space for kids to be who they are in
Yeah,
education.
totally.
However, I can't change that overnight.
Right.
So one of the things that I really focus on and I encourage parents to focus on is see the boy in front of you. See your boy. See who he is
Mhm.
and make space for him as he is in your home.
Welcome back to Raising Men. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Jennifer Fink, a prolific writer whose byline has appeared in myriad publications and a mother of 4 boys whose everyday life is obviously anything but quiet. Her book, which is Building Boys, Raising Great Guys in a World That Misunderstands Males, offers a powerful look at how to support boys in today's complicated culture, and her background writing for healthcare and education audiences gives her a sharp lens on what really matters. Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, and I can't think of a better, more suited topic than your book, Building Boys. I am so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. You know, they say write the book that you need. That's
Yeah.
basically what I did. I wrote the book that I wished that I had had probably 20 years previously.
Well, thank you so much for doing it, and I am so excited to talk with you today. Now, you've been writing since 1998, and you're raising 4 boys, and I can imagine what that's like. My mom was in the same situation, although we're limited to 2, and it's a boy and a girl. Tell us a little bit about your journey and what drew you into writing about boys and parenting, and how becoming a mother of 4 shaped your voice.
My oldest son was born in 1997. I started writing in 1998. Those two things are intrinsically linked.
I can imagine.
Intrinsically linked. My background is in nursing. So that's
Okay.
what my actual degree is in. And that's what I was doing when he was born. But I had always enjoyed writing. And I didn't know until afterwards that most nurses, when they graduate and they start working, they don't miss writing papers. That is not normal for most nurses. I kind of miss that aspect.
Interesting.
Yeah, I kind of miss that. And then, as you know, as anybody who has children knows, especially that first year, you spend a lot of time just trying to keep them busy, trying to fill the hours, trying to not go crazy with boredom. And so one particular day I had him in the stroller. We had walked to the library, something to do, and I'm looking at the books on the shelves. And there was this book, Handbook of Freelance Writing, which I'd never heard of. I picked it up. I'm looking at it. And this book talked about what this career was, how to do it. And it was written by a guy who was a registered nurse from rural Wisconsin, same as me, who made that transition. I'm like, huh. So that was really the start. That was the start. And the other part of it where it's intrinsically linked to being a parent, I think this is true for a lot of parents. It was definitely true for me. Once I became a parent, I became brave in a way I wasn't before. You realize that you can do things and you are willing to take a stand on things in a way that I didn't have that kind of strength before. And so it was, I'm doing this for my kid. Maybe I can do this for myself too. And that was how I started writing. I initially started writing for nursing magazines, write what you know. That's where I was in the world.
Yeah.
And how the writing about boys came about is I was trying to survive and understand my own world. I had 4 brothers. I have 4 brothers. I have 4 brothers. I have a sister. But being one of the children is not the same as trying to parent these boys when I'm like, I do not even know why they are doing what they are doing.
Yeah.
And that's where it started.
Yeah, that really echoes my own journey. And
Really?
I never missed writing. But I really did miss interactions like this, like having discussions with people like you. And my career I used to do this all the time. and then it kind of waned away, and I started to miss it. And then I have my boy, and I watch my boy and I watch my girl, and I'm not too worried that my girl is gonna be able to navigate the world.
Yeah.
She's fierce and she's powerful, and she's graduating into a world that is gonna welcome her. But my boy is wired differently, and he's not wired differently from other boys. He's wired differently than the world would prefer that he's wired. And I realized that I needed to make a study of this, and I might as well do it in public.
Right?
And that's why you and I are here having this discussion.
And that is why the subtitle of my book is A World That Misunderstands Males,
Yeah.
because that is one of the major themes that I saw as I was raising these boys and trying to support them in being who they are in a world that wasn't necessarily very welcoming of that
Yeah.
sometimes. And anybody who is raising children right now, mine are now young adults, but we can talk about systemic issues. We can talk about changes that we need to make at a cultural level.
Yeah.
I can't wait for all of that to happen. My kids
Right.
are growing up right now.
I need an answer tomorrow. That's exactly right.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, you write that boys are misunderstood in a lot
Mhm.
of ways. What do you think are some of the biggest things that people,
Yeah.
like parents and educators, what are the things that people consistently get wrong about boys? And how did your experience and research show you that that was a problem?
One of the biggest things that I have learned through doing research, so talking to other smart people, interviewing them for articles that I was working on, and then on our podcast, we had On Boys podcast for 7 years.
Yeah.
Um, I learned that developmentally, male and female development have different and unique paces. So, broadly speaking, and I'll just put out this generality right now, there are certainly lots of familiarities between males and females. We have and share many of the same capabilities, but on the whole, males are born at birth. They are less mature physically, cognitively than females. And then that pace of development is different as they are growing. So,
Yeah.
broadly speaking, the parts of the brain, for instance, that handle, language and impulse control mature more quickly in girls than in boys. By adulthood, we get to relatively the same places. But when we're talking about by adulthood, we're really talking about, mid to late 20s.
Right. And your path is pretty much defined by then. I mean, it's been
Right.
defined by the way that your teachers have interacted with you and how well you did in college and how well you did in high school, how well you did in elementary school. And that's scary.
So when you are looking at, a 4-year-old boy and a 4-year-old girl, a 5-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl, think about preschool, think about kindergarten. There are distinct differences that are developmental. And yes, some boys are ahead, some girls are behind. But asking them to do the same things and expecting the same outcomes isn't really fair. And if
Yeah.
if educators and if parents don't understand that, then it's very easy for the boy to become the problem.
Right.
And when boys start getting the message that there's something wrong with them, that they are the problem, it's really, really easy to check out. It's really easy to think, no, this place is not for me.
Right. Right. And
And
and as they get older, it's really, really easy for them to seek out affirming,
yes.
some sort of maladaptive affirming um kind of ecological niches where,
Yep.
that might not be that's not necessarily healthy either. If the only places that are
Right.
telling them that they are good and wanted and that they can be themselves are places that aren't healthy, well, guess what? They're going to go to unhealthy places.
Yes. Yes. One of the other things where I see a misunderstanding, and I personally think that it is born out of good intention. over the time that I've been raising boys, so my oldest, I said, was born in 97, the youngest was born in 2006. I was actively raising teenagers
Mhm.
and tweens during, the Me Too era.
Yeah.
Crucial time in our history
Yeah.
collectively, a really important time to look at, hey, we've let some behaviors go that we shouldn't have. This is harmful. This is
Yeah.
not okay. So parents became really, really concerned, appropriately so. I want to raise good guys. Great. Excellent. But then in practice, sometimes that means we're freaking out about things that I don't think we need to freak out about. Because when a little boy acts violently,
Mhm.
when he picks up a stick, when he turns something into a toy gun, this does not by definition mean he's on the path to being a mass shooter.
That's right.
When he says something stupid and sexist and uses language that we're like, oh, you got that from the manosphere, you're going to be a bad. It's not necessarily true.
Right.
We tend to overreact sometimes based on what little boys are doing because we're afraid they're going to become big men doing that. And that path is not clear. That doing this as a boy does not mean you are going to become this as a man. And Shaun, you can probably talk to that even better than I can because you were a boy.
Yeah. Not only that, I was very experimental as a boy. I tried all sorts of crazy shit that, frankly, that I am not proud that I did. And I remember thinking, "Oh, I'm gonna try this and see what happens." And I can see that happening in my boy, and I want him to feel free to do that, but I also want him to understand that, um, that he needs. So I'll give you a story,
Yeah.
that happened about a year and a half ago. He was in school, pre-K,
Okay.
and he had a buddy. And he and this buddy would just get up to all sorts of mischief in school. And one day, I heard from the teacher. She said, "Something very concerning happened today." And I said, "What
Wait,
happened?"
we have to pause right there, Shaun.
Yeah.
Parents, if you have a boy, you are going to have multiple phone calls and emails that start with that phrase. Something
It
concerning
felt like
happened
it was
today.
weekly. When he was in
Yes.
pre-K, he had a very difficult time, like, adjusting. And, yes, I felt like I was in the principal's office once a week. And so this is one of these cases, and the teacher said to me, she said, "Lake was slapping himself in the face hard enough to leave a mark today." And that was very concerning to me. And I picked him up from school, and we were walking. We live close enough to our school to walk in, so it's a nice little time that we have together.
Yeah.
We were walking home that day, and I said to him, I said, "Hey, I heard from your teacher that you were slapping yourself in the face really hard today, hard enough to leave a mark." And he kind of laughs. He goes, "Yeah, yeah." He says, "Me and Dennis, we were frustrated at ourselves for not getting the spelling words right. And so we thought this is a way to punish ourselves for getting it wrong. And so we just slap ourselves in the face whenever we got it wrong." And I was like,
Okay.
"Okay." And I thought for a minute. I couldn't. I I really admired the ingenuity of this approach. And, frankly, and I said, you know, "Here's the thing. It's your body. You can do whatever you want with it. I don't want to see you hurt yourself, but it's your body." I said, "But I need you to understand that slapping yourself in the face like that freaks people out, and they
Perfect.
get the wrong idea.
Perfect.
So just think about that." And he goes, "Huh. Okay, I'll just do it at home then." As far as I know, he never did it again. But it really threw me for a loop. I was like, how do I reinforce the overall strategy
Yeah.
while also giving him the boundaries of understanding the way the rest of the world, your brain is not working the way the rest of the world wants it to work. And
Yeah.
that's actually a really good thing. But you also need to understand, you need to be a rational consumer of what other people expect so that you can do, if you want to do the wrong thing, you're doing it on purpose. And that's fine.
I think
It's
you handled
tough.
that so beautifully. And this is part of the fun of raising boys. If you are open to it, if you can let yourself be open to it, because I got to tell you, as somebody who grew up as a girl,
Yeah.
that never occurred to me as a study technique.
Right.
Ever, 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 ever. Like the boy brain and the things that come up are just endlessly fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that it made perfect sense to him and his friend.
Yeah.
And hidden behind all that, already in pre-K or transitional kindergarten, they knew, well, we can't hit other people,
Yeah.
right? They knew that.
Yeah,
We
we're
can't
hitting
do
each
it to
other.
each other. Right.
Yeah.
We can't do it to each other. We have to do it to ourselves. So
Right.
this makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think you handled it so beautifully
Oh,
because,
thank you for that.
you had this input from the teacher and you didn't bring it up in an accusatory way, in a you're doing something wrong way. It was, hey, I heard this from your teacher. What is this all about?
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. And I've learned over time that the teacher's word isn't gospel. She's got, 20 kids running around. It's chaos
Yeah.
in there. She doesn't necessarily see what's going on. And the boy does. I mean, he knows what the deal is. And so if I just give him the space to tell me, I want him to feel comfortable coming to me and being and sharing
Yes.
anything. And so
Yes.
that's another thing we try and cultivate.
Yeah.
But I'll get a story from the teacher and then I'll get a story from the boy, and they're not reconcilable. And then I'll ask him, I'll say, oh, well, this is what your teacher said. Can you help me get to the bottom of it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's also such a good example of one of those things. He's young yet. You're going to get more and more and more of these stories where the teacher tells you that. And as a parent, aren't you kind of like, well, what am I supposed to do about that?
Yeah.
Like, I, I don't know what I'm supposed to do
What do
with
you want?
that
What do you want
information.
from me?
It
Yeah,
sort of
that's
sounds
exactly
like
right.
it sounds like a self-limiting problem, right? He's not going
Yeah.
to hit himself hard
I,
enough to really cause harm. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's right. And so, there's no permanent damage here.
right.
But he stopped doing it. And so there you go.
And we did have circumstances too where there are things that happen at school and then you hear his perspective and like, yeah, that's important. And sometimes, a lot of times, it ends up coming down to, yeah, that's not really something you can or should do at school.
Yeah.
School is not the place. School is not
Yeah.
the place. And sometimes there was more going on than maybe the teacher saw at that
Right.
moment. I mean, I had a son that got in trouble. I think he was probably in about 7th grade at this point, because he hauled off and he hit another kid. Okay, that is clearly against the rules of school. It is
Can't do
also
it.
like,
Yeah.
this is not the kind of behavior that I'm teaching or condoning either. Like,
Yep.
there are other ways to solve problems. We work on these things. But then as you get into it, the backstory was like, this kid had been, kind of doing some constant harassing and picking on the hat of another kid, and knocking
Mhm.
this hat off all the time. And just this pick, 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 pick. And anybody who's ever been in school knows this stuff goes on, right?
Absolutely.
And that day, my kid decided he had enough of it and he hit the other kid.
Mhm.
Not good. Consequence at school. We talked about it. I didn't have a problem with the school having a consequence for it because this is a clear rule. But at the same time, I'm not going to double down on it
Right.
because I think you already know this. It was done then for those boys. It was done. It
Yeah.
didn't turn into anything else. It didn't linger on. Everybody they all played on the same baseball team together.
Yeah.
and it was a more functional relationship after that. I am not saying that hitting people should be how we solve our problems,
Right.
but that if a 7th grade boy does that, it's
It
part
solved the
of
problem.
him
Yeah.
it's part of him growing and learning. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I would also point out that your son's instinct to be a
Yeah,
protector
right?
in that moment is a good thing. And
Right?
that is actually masculinity. That's healthy. And that is something we want to cultivate. And so the game there, the tension is, how do we cultivate your instinct to be a provider, or your instinct to be a protector in that
Protector.
circumstance, with the fact that it is forbidden to hit people.
Right.
So what do you do? How do you manage that? And that, I mean, that's a real tough needle to thread. I mean, just going to the adults, hey, this kid is knocking this other kid's hat off, isn't going to work. And so, you know, it's that is a really, really, really tough situation to deal with.
Yeah. I'm curious, what would you have done, do you think? Now, you're not this far in your parenting, right? You haven't had all those stages up to it, but I'm curious what your instincts are.
I had a similar situation. Well, so not actually, kind of the opposite situation where my boy was at the park, and he and his friends were playing a game, and there were some girls that were kind of messing with him, and not like, they were actually probably flirting in a sort of way that was not really recognizable as that.
Right.
And my boy kind of menaced this girl. And my boy is very big. He is 6 years old, but he's probably the size of a 9-year-old. He's very, very
Okay.
big. And so he, like, looked at this girl and gave her this face and menaced her, just like, "Ah," and growled at her. And she cried, and she she went to her dad and cried. And I flipped my top, and I called out to him, and I told him to come to me, and he came to me, and I said, "Listen, I saw you menace that girl, and we do not menace people." I said, "You are a protector.
I
Your
love it.
role is to make people feel safe. And that girl did not feel safe, and she did not feel safe because of you. That is not, we do not do that. We're the opposite of that." And um and he was very upset. He gets very, very upset when I get crossways with him like that. And it kind of ruined the day, really. But I felt it was really, really important to nail that down. And in the case of what you were talking about, like, I suspect that I'm going to have to deal with this. He does view himself as, he recognizes that he's bigger than all the other kids, and he
Yeah.
recognizes that he has a role to play there. And I think that in that circumstance, I might have sat him down, and I might have said, what happened here? And he would tell me his side of it. I would say, what could you have done? What do you think
Yep.
you could have done in the fullness and in retrospect? What do you think you could have done to solve that problem in a way that didn't involve actually hitting this other kid?
Yeah.
And my guess is he would say nothing. It was the only choice. They're like, well, that's something we need to think about. And the fact is, there are circumstances where if that's the only choice, maybe that's what you have to do. But frankly, it's really never okay to hit people first. And
Mhm.
if you're
Mhm.
defending yourself or you're defending somebody else from actual bodily harm, then it's appropriate to use force like that. But I mean, he was just messing with the kid and knocking
Right.
the kid's hat off, and that's approaching the line, but it's not over the line, I don't think. So, that's something we need to think about. But man, I don't, you know, in my heart of hearts, I feel like your son did the right thing.
And that's where the tricky part comes sometimes, right?
No.
So you have the conversations, and that after reflection and sharing of your values, I think, is so important.
Yeah.
And parents, listen, we are doing this all in real time, right?
Yeah.
Our kids are acting in real time. We are acting in real time. W- You did not expect ever that you were ever going to have to say to your son, hitting yourself in the face freaks people out. You're not prepared for this.
Ever.
We're we're all doing it in real time, but when you can
Yeah.
have those conversations and reflect on it without demonizing what they have done, you can
Right.
share your values, you can share your family rules, school rules, community rules. I love how you are defining for your son already that, your protector role is to make people feel safe.
Yeah.
That is such a boy-friendly, easy to understand language that can be applied in lots of different ways. So, all of our kids are going to do stupid shit. All of them. Doesn't mean they're a bad boy, doesn't mean they're going to become a bad man. It
Right.
means that we have we have these opportunities for these discussions, and over time, we continue to share our values, our expectations of them, help them think about what are some other ways we could handle this. And most people, even if we are not having these conversations with our sons, I think we should, but even if we're not, most people are not going to be handling things at 45 the same way they did when they were 11
I know.
or
That is
12.
actually a really difficult thing to get into our heads. For me especially, I tend to see 2 points and then I draw a line across those 2 points and then I behave as if we're at that extension into affinity. And it's so like I don't do things the same way that I did when I was 10.
No,
I've learned
no.
so much since then.
I think from this perspective now, having young adult children and having done so much of that worrying and forwarding projecting, it's one of the most harmful things that we as parents do to ourselves
Yeah.
and then ultimately to our kids. Because when I am reacting to a seventh grader or a 5-year-old based on what I think this behavior might look like when he's 25 or 45, ignoring the fact that there's a lot of brain maturation that's going on in between, that's not helpful for him. And it's really, really not helpful for me because it puts just all of this pressure on it. And
Yeah.
because I have 4 children and I got to see them go through these developmental stages, at a certain point after the first one, I'm like, oh, so like 13 to 15 is just kind of a really crappy time.
Yeah.
And things get better. And sure, some of that is parenting, but some of it is they just grow up.
Mhm. Yeah. I think, I mean, it feels like we can control them and it feels like we're sculpting them, but we're not. We're tending to a
Right.
garden
Yep.
and they're going to grow how they're going to grow. And I have to remind myself of that all the time. And I just have to make sure that the right water's there and the right, you know, fertilizer is there and that the garden is contained and there's no predators in there and all of that stuff, but that's really all you can do is create the environment.
It's terrifying because we
Yeah.
all want to think as parents that if we do the right things, we will get these good outcomes.
Yeah.
We want to think that. But we also know people who did all the right things. And guess what? Stuff still happened.
Yeah.
You can be a great parent and you can still have a kid who makes a really bad choice. You can be a great parent and still have a kid who struggles with addiction. All of these things are true. And it's terrifying to realize that. And we kind of do have to push it aside a little bit, I think, to get through our day-to-day lives, because if you dwell on that, well, that can feel pretty hopeless too. And that's not helpful either.
Yeah. I feel like your sons, were coming of age at a time that was where the pendulum was really, really far over in one
Yeah.
direction in a way that probably felt really excluding to them.
Yeah, they felt that.
And I think that there's a lot more awareness now that that's not healthy, that we need to have a holistic vision, that um wanting to be there and help women and girls is not mutually exclusive with helping men. It's not it's not they're we're not opposed to each other. It's about cultivating kids. And I think there's a lot more awareness now, but when you were dealing with it, I don't think there was. How do you feel
No.
like society is changing and I mean, do you think that it's getting better or worse, and how?
I feel like there's much, much more acknowledgement of the issue right now. At least now we are collectively having conversations and bringing to the forefront, hey, boys, broadly speaking, are not doing as well in school as girls and
Yeah,
haven't been for a long time. And this is a problem. And when it was a problem for girls, we took some action. And look, we had these great outcomes. Maybe we should
yeah,
think about that.
yeah,
We are talking about the fact that the vast majority of suicides across all ages are male.
yeah,
That's a problem. We are starting to talk about these things. And so I think that that is good because that's the first step. Like the awareness is there. I think we still have a lot of work to do in terms of filtering that down into our daily interactions with boys, into figuring out how to create environments that help boys thrive. And it is 100% possible to create environments where boys and girls and non binary children can thrive. It is
right.
possible. But we, the grown-ups, often get stuck on our own stuff. And part of this, it is. We say it's not a zero-sum game, and it's not. But when it comes to funding, it kind of is a zero-sum game. And I think that's where
Yeah,
some of the grown-up arguments end up breaking out because there's only X number of dollars, and how are we going to
yeah,
spend them, and where are we going to spend them? For most of us as parents, it's not helpful to get caught into that.
yeah,
I think that there still needs to be so much more education for parents and especially for those going into education, you know,
yeah,
male development and talking to and listening to boys. And because there are a lot of people who have great intentions, but they've never really interacted
yeah.
with a little boy. And when boys start getting messages that what they are doing is wrong, we already talked about how that can be really harmful and just snowball as they go through. So I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the ground yet.
Yeah, I would actually slightly modify the way that you framed that. When boys get the messages, not that what they're doing is wrong, but that who they are is wrong, right?
Mm,
And so, yes, it's not okay to disrupt the class, right? It's not okay to go around and hassle people while everybody's supposed to be working. That is something you did. It's not now your urge to do that is part of who you are, and
you're
there
right.
are healthy ways to let that out and healthy times to let that out. And that's the thing. That's the nuance that we need to somehow communicate to them. You know, one of the things that it's really easy to fall into the trap of feeling like, oh, this is a societal problem. And there are societal problems, and we
Yes.
face cultural headwinds and tailwinds all the time. But the fact is that I can't, I can influence that slightly, but I cannot fix whatever society decides to do. If
Right.
society decides to have a really extreme Me Too movement when my kid is 18 years old, and I am in the situation where you're in, then that's just the deal. And I'm going to have
Right.
to figure out how to train my boy to get the best result out of his life in that environment.
Yes.
And that's the challenge. So, you know, it's fun
So
to talk about that philosophy. It's fun to kind of go down into it and oh, these are the problems and this is all the stuff and there needs to be more male role models and male teachers in elementary school. Well, I'm not going to affect that. but I
Right.
can affect the way my son looks at the world, and I can affect the way that I interact with him. And so, what I'm really, really interested in are the tactics that I can do to help give him a healthy sense of masculinity and a healthy sense of who he is and all of that.
So
And
one of the things that I did, because like you, I can't single-handedly change the school or the
yeah,
society, right? So there were definitely times when my boys, they were getting the message who they are and what they wanted. It was just wrong. There was no room for it. And
yeah,
Shaun, it's everything from I got a call from school because my kid, I think he was in kindergarten, maybe first grade. They were drawing giraffes in art class, right? And he drew a pile of poop at the back end of his. And I mean, that went over as well as he thought it would, right? Like
yeah,
his friends all thought that was great. Guess what?
yeah,
His teacher didn't. So
right,
he got in trouble. Then he
sure,
felt terrible. Then I got called to the school. I mean, it was this whole thing, right?
wow,
There's literally a book called Everybody Poops. Like there are other ways we could have handled this. And I absolutely think that we should be working towards um, making more space for kids to be who they are in
yeah,
education.
totally,
However, I can't change that overnight.
right,
So one of the things that I really focus on and I encourage parents to focus on is see the boy in front of you. See your boy. See who he is
mhm,
and make space for him as he is in your home and in your lives and find ways to facilitate his interest and let those things be okay, right? So,
yeah,
yeah, we had the talk about you can't draw poop when you're working on art projects at school. But yeah, they poop and at home 100% fine. 100%.
yeah,
Um it was things like making room for them to do riskier things at home that they could do other places. Like I
yeah,
tolerated bike ramps off of all kinds of things. I had to
sure,
close my eyes and not look sometimes.
yeah,
My youngest son took over a third of our garage, and I prioritized his garage time more than I prioritized his homework sometimes.
yeah,
Because for him, he was a very hands on, experiential learner. So for
right,
him, tinkering with a machine that was important to who he was in his soul, in his being. And he didn't have any other outlet for that. He didn't have an
right,
outlet. They don't do that in fifth grade at school.
right.
So if that was something he needed, then that was important and something I prioritized for him.
Yeah, I had an experience along those lines yesterday where so my boy's been having a little bit of a tough time at his after school care. And this week I happen to have a lot of time off in the afternoons. And so I've been getting him early. And yesterday he's been talking about getting into golf. And so I took him to the driving
Nice.
range and we just went to the driving range together. And I'm terrible at golf. And I started off the whole process by like showing him how to hold the club and showing him how to stand and showing him how to swing and all of this stuff. And I started to get this kind of resistance from him, and it was starting to go in a direction that it wasn't going to be fun.
Okay.
And I finally just shut up and I said, you know, here's how to be safe and here's how not to hurt anybody. Just start hitting balls.
He wanted to figure it out.
And he got so much enjoyment out of just swinging away at that stupid ball. And every time the ball went 10 feet in the air, he was like, Dad, look, I hit it in the air. And look, I hit it past that puddle. And he can let, and I was sitting there and I was hitting balls 200 yards all in the air. And some of them were going straight and some of them were going sideways and some of them were just shanks off the ground and some of them were all over the place. And I had this tremendous amount of frustration. I had a miserable experience because I was sucking at golf from my point of view. And yet the ball was going crazy, and he was binging balls all over the place. And some rolled in the grass, and some bounced off went all over the place. And he had more fun than I did, way more fun. And it's
Yeah.
just because he was just doing his thing.
I
and I
love
had to
that.
let go, and I had to, like, just completely not worry about the outcome here for him, and now he's got a passion for it.
Oh my gosh, what a great story, and I'm sorry that it was unpleasant for you in the moment.
It was
Uh,
hard. It was hard to
yeah.
let go of him. It was hard not to try and get him to get the result, and then but golf is just a miserable experience for me because I'm bad.
But there's so much that, like, we as adults think we know how to do, and yeah, we
Right,
do know how to do a lot more than our kids do just by virtue of being in the world longer.
right.
It's hard when they wanna try and figure something out, and we're like, "Yeah, but I just let me I
Yeah,
love that you recognize, "Okay, this is becoming stressful and it's threatening to go sideways, so I'm gonna just step back for a lit," and it was hard.
yeah,
It was hard,
and
but then you were also
he
able
got so much more
to see
enjoyment
the
out of it
joy.
if yeah, if we'd done the other thing, and you know what? Maybe he'll get the fever and he'll love playing golf and it'll be amazing, or maybe he won't and it'll fizzle out and he'll find out that it's pretty hard
Yeah.
and he won't like it. Well, that's fine.
Yes. Yes. And he will either, through his own motivation and his experience, decide he wants to go further. And you know what? After he messes around a while, he might be like, hey, Dad, how do you hit it so far?
Yeah,
He might ask, he might not, and you can follow his lead.
yeah,
It Many of us weren't parented that way, following their lead, watching them for cues, but I think it is much more effective and more pleasant when we stay attuned and we're kind of watching them for clues. Think of it as
yeah,
a dance, right? How you watch one another and adjust.
yeah, yeah, and, I'll tell you, that does not come naturally to me at all. I really have to struggle to do it. I have to remind myself to do it. And but when I do, it's a really great experience. And when I put him
Yeah.
to bed that night, he said that today was one of the best days of his life. And that's, I mean, what else do you want, right?
I have a story. This was from a number of years ago. I live in a small town, rural Wisconsin, and it is as picturesque as you think sometimes.
Yeah.
We have this 4th of July tradition where, the fireworks are up at the ballpark. First, the Legion team plays ball, the teenage kids play ball.
Right.
And then the lights go down and there's fireworks. Then, after the fireworks, the lights come up and all the kids like run on the bases. Like, it's just
Oh
mayhem
man,
and it's
how cool.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And this was my youngest son was probably 9-ish at the time, maybe. And, there are lots and lots of kids of all ages, going from maybe 3, 4 up until, early teens running the bases.
Yeah.
And I look, and my son is army crawling between the bases. I'm talking down there on his belly, dragging himself. I'm like,
Yeah.
what is he like? I'm worried he's going to get stepped on, all of these things. Also, I'm fully aware that I have to take this dirty child home and then, get him in the tub and all these things before bed. But I just kept watching, and he rounded first and then he rounded second, and he's still going. And other kids are just running around him. It is amazing how other kids, do this. And once he rounded third, it dawned on me he's trying to get all the way around
Yeah.
this way. I
Yeah.
have no clue why. Like, why would a person try and do this? It makes no sense. But he did it. He rounded home, and one of his friends was there, and they celebrated like this kid just won the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Like, it clearly meant something to him. And he came over, and he is as filthy as you can imagine. I mean, we're
Right.
talking ground in dirt everywhere. And, I let the whole thing happen, and we get home later, and I have a blog post about this that I wrote, which is part of why I remember it, and I can share it with you, if you want to share it with your
Yeah,
listeners later.
we'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, and, I kinda asked him about it, and he felt so proud, and he talked about it later in his bath too, and he said something to the effect of how, again, something like best day and a great experience, and that'll be a good memory.
Yeah.
And he even reflected on, if you had been something like another kind of mom, that wouldn't have happened. Like, I could have shut that whole thing down.
Sure.
Like, get up. What do you
That's
think
the
you're doing? You're
reflex.
all
That's the
dirty.
reflex
You're
is
all
to shut it down.
absolutely. I could have shut that down. but I let it happen because I could see in that moment. I didn't understand it, but I knew it was important to him for some reason. So if it's important to him,
Yeah,
he's getting something out of it.
that's right.
And whether it was, he was testing his tolerance or his ability or whether he could do this, it was a moment where he felt really good about himself and what
Mhm.
he had accomplished. All right, so his clothes were dirty. Guess what? They were going to be dirty coming home anyway. Like that
Yeah,
was not a big deal.
right.
So I kind of use that as a guiding memory. Even if we don't understand what they're trying to accomplish and it looks foolish to us,
Yeah.
if they are really into it, they're getting something out of it.
Yeah, I think part of what's going on there is, especially our boys have this tension between connection and independence.
Yeah.
And so they want to feel that connection, but then they want to assert their independence. And it seems to me like what he was trying to do was assert his independence from the whole crowd. The crowd is doing this running thing, and I'm going to do this crawling thing. And part of what felt so good to him is he succeeded. He is he did something unique, like
Uh,
truly unique in all the world. He did something truly unique, and it's actually really tough to find places where that's true for any of us.
yeah.
And I
I
get that.
really
I
appreciate
get
that
that.
framing. That's not a perspective I've had on it before,
Mm,
but I do see, he's now 19.
yeah,
He has been more comfortable than a lot of people I know blazing his own path,
going his own way. Yeah.
going his own way.
And here's the ugly truth about it
Yeah.
is you could force him into a track and it
Yeah.
might even work. He might do the track that you want him to do. But then he's going to figure out another way, a maladaptive way to
Yeah.
assert his independence. And that is really what you don't want. You'd
Right?
much rather have him do it that way in this kind of healthy out front and talking about it way, as opposed to getting into gambling or porn or something that you don't even know
Right.
about.
Right. Absolutely. And all of those things are so ubiquitous and easy to access right now.
And so much more now. And it's terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yes. Yes. I mean, our generation and those before us, you had to really, really try
That's right.
if you wanted to gamble or if you wanted to look at porn. That took some effort, that took some doing. Uh, and now they're not even necessarily looking for it and it just shows up there on
It's
their phone.
wired into your brain practically. It is just out there on the phone. And
Yeah.
that is not, it is a scary thing. And so, and whereas we used to be able to rely on the kind of gatekeepers to keep them out, you now have to instill that discipline before they even have a prefrontal cortex. You have to
Yeah.
somehow instill the discipline about, this is what's healthy and this is what's not healthy. It's a real challenge that we face in this modern world that just did not
Yeah.
exist before. And there's going to be a lot of heartache while people try and figure it out.
Yes. Yes. Because the forces aligned against us have really, really, really deep pockets and there's a lot of profit to be
They
made.
make a lot of money.
Um,
They make a lot of money sports gambling, and they're not trying to,
no,
it's not like they're out to try to mess up your kids. It's just a
no,
side effect that they don't care about.
they don't care. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't have any great or easy answers, but I do know that it is on all of us as parents and concerned adults.
Yeah.
We have to have these conversations with our kids
Yeah.
earlier than we want to and more times than we want to because this is the world that we're all living in.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true. Jennifer, before we wrap up, I like to ask every guest the same question. And that is, if you could distill everything we've talked about or in your book into one guiding principle for parents raising boys, and maybe it's something you try to live by yourself, and it doesn't have to, we don't have to distill everything, all of your wisdom down to one, but give me one operating principle that you might that you think about or that you've tried to live by yourself or that you would like to share with the audience.
I really think it can be as simple as look at the boy in front of you. Look at the boy in front of you and facilitate his interest. Look at the boy in front of you and facilitate him in growing. I
I
we
think that
we
is
over
the perfect sentiment.
we overcomplicate things so
Yeah.
much. And yes, there's all these things. I have to pay attention to porn and think about gambling and think about how he acts at school. Look at the boy in front of you and respond to that boy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think one of the things that it's a temptation that I think fathers have is we almost want our boys to live the life that we would live if we were them. We want them to have achievements that we wish we had. And I think that is maligned as trying to live through our sons, and I'm sure that happens. I feel that pull, and I have a great life, and I'm proud of it, and I don't feel like I have to live through my son. But there are things that I wish that I had encountered earlier, or things that I
Yeah.
wish that I'd figured out earlier that would have been so much more powerful for me. And I look back and, man, I wish I'd done this and I wish I'd done that. And I want him to not have to go through that and not have to
Yes.
have those experiences and the negative side of those experiences. But the fact is that the negative side of those experiences is just as formulative as the positive ones, maybe even more.
Right.
And so you need him to. You need him to go through. You need him to figure it out himself, because figuring it out for him doesn't exercise the muscle.
And he will resist it anyway.
Yeah.
You just learned that with
Because
golf.
he's trying
And
to
that's a
assert his
little
independence.
tiny little
So
thing.
give him a way to assert his independence in a way that is healthy, right?
Right?
Yeah.
I've never been a father, obviously, but that tension and that wanting to spare them some of the pain that we have gone through,
Yeah.
I've definitely felt that. And
Yeah.
they have pretty soundly rejected those offers all the way along. They are bound and determined to make their own mistakes and learn the hard way. And it can be crazy making.
Yes.
And at the same time, I have to remind myself, I cannot expect them at 20 to have the kind of wisdom and perspective that I didn't have until I was 35 or 40.
That's right.
Like, there's not a shortcut to that.
Yeah.
So you have to let things happen
Yeah.
and be there. You mentioned connection. The connection is the most important thing. They're going to screw up. You're going to screw up. You keep coming back. You keep repairing. You keep loving. You keep going on. And you end up in a beautiful place.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that connection, the metaphor that comes to mind for me is like it's this strong base that they can launch from,
Yeah.
right? And if
Yep.
they have that strong connection, they can feel comfortable going out in the world and exploring and doing all of those things. And they know there's a nest to come back to anytime they need to, even if they never come back, right? Even if they never
Right.
need it, they know
Right.
it's there.
Right.
And so, yeah, just, a lot of it is just being present, I think.
It
And
is.
strangely, it's easier to do all of the other things than it is just to sit down and be present and listen to what they're trying to tell you.
Well, because sometimes what they're trying to tell you seems so stupid and dumb and irrelevant in the moment, right? Like if you've got a kid who's super into Minecraft and he's trying to tell you all about his Minecraft world, like my brain just goes blank. It's
This
very
is
hard
every
for me to
morning for
follow
me.
that along.
This is every
Yeah.
morning for me. He's watching Minecraft videos. I let him do it for an hour a day. And he would watch 18 hours of Minecraft videos if I let him. And my wife and I had a conversation about that very thing this morning. And like, she says to me, someone needs to explain to me how is that is remotely beneficial to him. And I said, I don't have an answer for you. I feel the same way about it, but the fact is he finds it entertaining and he gets value from it. And I don't want to be judgmental about that. And
Yeah.
we actually don't know what we're going to do because he's spending a lot of time watching these YouTube Minecraft videos, watching other people play video games. I would almost rather have him just play the video game.
I know that it was mystifying to me when the
Yep.
world happened where like now they're starting to watch other people doing the things, but they kind of learn by doing that. And it is feeding a part of their brain. And yes, limits on it is important.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is probably me trying to make way too direct of a line, But
Sure.
my youngest son, he played a lot of Minecraft. He watched the videos. He did that. I mean, he's laying blocks and building patios and walls for people now. And it's not a direct, he learned that from Minecraft, but
He engaged his passion. I'll guarantee you he engaged his passion and was able to recognize the passion. And that's such a powerful statement. It was the beginning. It was the same thing for me. When I was 13 years old, I was so into video games. I loved video games. That led me
okay.
into a career in electrical engineering and programming for computers. And it's been
See,
tremendous for me. And my
I
father
think that
just thought it was the stupidest thing in the world.
I think that is so important to talk about video games specifically. One of my brothers is a video game designer.
Yeah.
Well, now he teaches video game design to high schoolers.
Nice.
And
Oh,
certainly
cool.
we were, the earliest iteration of video games. He loved two things growing up. He loved video games and he loved sports.
Yeah.
And he was either outside, shooting hoops, or he was downstairs in the dark basement in summer, playing video games,
Right.
and it looks like a complete and total waste of time.
That's
It
right.
does. But he was also subconsciously learning, how do these games work?
Mhm.
What
Me
makes a
too.
good game? What's the
Yep.
storytelling? What's all the first video games he designed were sports video games.
Yeah.
So not every kid who plays video games is going to have a career in video games, but there are a lot of applicable skills. And this is something I've written about too.
Yeah.
When we write off our boys' interest and kind of let them know that we think it's stupid, that's hurting them.
Mhm.
It's hurting them. And they already get enough messages that say who you are and what you're interested in is wrong. So
right.
I think we have to do our best to try and see things through their eyes.
I do too.
And even if we don't understand it, recognize that it's important to them for some reason. So how
Yeah.
can I live with this? How can we make
Yeah.
space for it?
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and honesty about what it takes to raise healthy masculine men. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time. I hope we can stay in contact, and
Yes.
and I'll be calling you for advice.
I will be here. Right now, things are in a good place.
That's great. I mean, for me too. For me too. Well, for those who want to dive deeper, please check out Building Boys and Jennifer's work at jenniferlwfink.com. The link is in the show notes. If this episode helped you see your sons differently, please like and subscribe, and definitely share with a friend or another parent raising boys. This has been Raising Men. I'm Shaun Dawson, and you are a great parent. Raising Men is produced by Phil Hernandez. This episode was edited by Ralph Tolentino.